Well, joining me now to talk more about this topic is Banafsheh Akhlaghi. She's an attorney in private practice who's worked widely in the field of civil and human rights. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Rachelle.
So for people who are wondering, is there a real need for active shooter insurance, and how does it compare to the demand for other types of insurance?
Really great question. Reuters just had a report on this recently, and they said that there really isn't any actual detailed survey on what kind of numbers we're looking at in the U.S. School system in taking on this kind of coverage. Of course, there are those that say the coverage is on a rise, and then others will say that that account is actually exaggerated and inflated, and in fact not necessary. So this type of insurance, this active assailant insurance or active shooter insurance, is it's considered a gap measure of sorts. So the general liability insurance that the schools might have may not cover additional expenses such as medical expenses or funeral costs or the death benefits that are associated with it.
Sorry, just as we're talking about the funding for this, just how affordable is this for school districts? And then for those who can't afford it, what's the alternative?
Well, right now these insurance run anywhere from an average of $1,800 annual premiums for about $1 million of coverage. But the larger school systems are looking at an average of $175,000 for about $20 million of coverage. I think that, and many would say that this is a byproduct of a much larger issue. And that larger issue is having common sense gun control policies in play. This is a reaction to a conversation that many need to sit down and begin to engage in here in the United States. Alternatives, I mean, those resources are limited in many schools across this land. Those dollars can be used for so many other beneficial reasons as well that are needed. Infrastructure remedied, schools are in disarray, teachers are using their own limited salaries to make purchases for school needs, their classroom needs. Right. The list goes on.
Now, often after these school shootings hit the media, we see a lot of interest in products like bulletproof backpacks and all sorts of upgraded technology to alert authorities and things like that. So what are some other precautionary measures that are currently being taken?
Well, many schools and teachers, the unions, the teacher unions are speaking about things like bulletproof doors, bulletproof blankets. But there's a large contingency here that are actually asking for and calling for something beyond that, which is mental health care on campuses, where these mental health care professionals can get to know the students, get to know the children, and intervene before a tragedy strikes.
Now, one of the things that we saw was obviously strong reactions for and against Education Secretary Betsy DeVos's call to use education dollars to arm teachers. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm right there with many law enforcement officials, trained law enforcement officials and teachers unions to say that teachers are teachers. They're not first responders. And to ask them to become first responders is just not sensible. They themselves say that leave the curriculum and planning of the coursework to us, and let us leave first response to you who are the trained professionals. What is now on the books here as consideration is, for the first time in the United States history, to use Department of Education funds to potentially allow for states to purchase guns in the classrooms, for the classrooms. This is unheard of. It's unprecedented. Yes, we do need to protect our children. Yes, we need to protect our teachers. We need to protect the schools. But we need to also remember that we need to create a safe environment, not have the classrooms and schoolyards become war zones for these children.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your insights. Attorney Banafsheh Akhlaghi there.
Thank you very much for having me.